welcome here to more Talk FCB, and welcome back to the channel, guys. It is the day after our thumping victory over Ferencvaros in the Champions League. Barcelona hitting back, getting back to winning ways, and scoring 5 goals in the process. But ahead of some big tests to come, Real Madrid, Juventus, all in the coming days, we're going to be discussing what we've learned from yesterday's game, both in terms there of the collective, but also in terms of individuals who were looking to prove a point. It's all coming up in today's video, so let's get to it. And of course, in terms of the local papers this morning, Sport and MD both focusing there on the manita that Barcelona produced yesterday against Ferencvaros, scoring 5 goals and hitting back in the best possible way there to gather confidence for Ronald Koeman's side. And I think that was one of the biggest words after yesterday's game. Yes, we know that Ferencvaros is not the strongest team ever, but it is all about gaining that confidence, gaining that momentum, which we desperately needed after 2 games without a win. And in particular, what I'd like to start with here, just like we have discussed in recent games, all about the structure of this team. Because against Getafe, like we said there about that right-hand side, it was poor, it was disorganised, there was no real shape about our team. But look at the difference here against Ferencvaros last night. It was so much better. Now, the one thing you have to note there is Dest, number 2, sort of throws things off a bit because his average position was obviously there a little bit messed up because he started at left back, he ended up playing at right back. That's why there he's quite in field. But what I want you to look at there is the width, especially Francisco Trincao wide on that right-hand side, Ansu Fati wide on the left. So much there, natural width coming from those 2 players, stretching the pitch and basically allowing Lionel Messi, Coutinho there to have more space in field, and we saw that yesterday, a much more complete display and much better from Barcelona. And of course, we do start with one of the providers of that width. It is Ansu Fati, who on a night at the Camp Nou set yet more records on an individual level, because Ansu Fati there became the first player ever to score more than 1 Champions League goal before the age of 18. And it's interesting, because given the fact we play Juventus just before his 18th birthday, he'll have the opportunity to add to that record even further. And of course, it wasn't just Ansu Fati providing the magic last night, because Barcelona also became the first club ever to have 2 17-year-old scorers in the same game, with not only Ansu getting on the score sheet, but also Pedri coming on and making a real impact. And to be perfectly honest, with the way that Trincao was playing down that right-hand side, the quality that he was showing, we could have easily added a 20-year-old to that list as well. He was close to scoring, and he probably deserved a goal. He was just not quite getting there in terms of the final touch, but that'll certainly come at the future. In terms of our attack, it looks bright. But in particular, of those 3 players, the one that I really want to focus a little bit more on here is young Pedri. 17 years old, came in the summer from Las Palmas on a relatively cheap deal. He came in there quite under the radar. We didn't know if he was going to come straight into the first team, but here we are, and he's really making inroads here into Ronald Koeman's plans, and he's playing absolutely brilliantly. He showed really promising signs against Getafe, and that's saying something, because against Getafe, not many Barcelona players were able to break them down. Not many Barcelona players actually look good out there on the field, but Pedri did. Pedri was very impressive, and despite not starting against Ferencvaros, he might have thought to himself, you know what, I thought I played so well against Getafe that I deserved to start this game. But there was none of that. He came off the bench, he looked vibrant, he looked really motivated to go out there and again prove his point, and he did just that. He came on, he played a big part, of course, in Dembélé's goal, the build-up to that, and he scored himself, and I was so impressed again with what we're seeing from this young man. But of course, for young players, it's not just about the talent, it's not just about what they can do on the field, it's also about the way they carry themselves and the way they deal with things off the pitch as well. And I just want to highlight something that has been picked up here by the media when it comes to Pedri, because you often see players arrive at stadiums before the game, they've got their designer clothes on, they've got their designer bags, they're coming in, they've got it all there, and look, it's fine, you know, they earn the money, they can spend it how they like, and that's just what footballers do. But I want to show you here a picture of Pedri arriving at the Camp Nou before last night's Champions League game, and just look at that. He's got a plastic bag with his stuff in. Something there you probably get from your local supermarket. He's coming in there like he's turning up to a 5-a-side game, but he actually arrives at the Camp Nou with his stuff in a bag, comes on, scores a brilliant goal, puts in another great display in the Champions League, and then he walks off the field, he goes out the stadium. Does he leave the ground in his Lamborghini? In his Ferrari? No, he doesn't. He doesn't even leave the ground in his own car. He leaves in a taxi. Now, many people will say, this doesn't mean anything. What is the point of all this? That doesn't really tell you anything. But I just love the whole feeling around Pedri right now. He seems somebody who's incredibly humble, he's eager to learn. He seems very different from many of the youngsters that we often see in the game these days. And I really do hate comparisons when it comes to players, when it comes to comparing players there to legends. And I'm not talking about on the field here. It's way too early about that. But what I will say is, in terms of personality, in terms of the way that young Pedri here, coming onto the scene, the way that he carries himself right now, it does remind me of Andres Iniesta. And that is one of the greatest compliments, not on the field. Again, I'm not comparing the two in terms of ability, but personality-wise, it's one of the best compliments you can give. Because Iniesta was the model professional, and if Pedri can go on and achieve only half of what he did, he'll be incredible. However, as we get towards the end of the video, it's very important here that we look at yesterday's game, and you know what, we hold our hands up and say it wasn't all perfect. It would be silly there, it would be foolish to say that everything was all rosy and we got no concerns whatsoever, because you've got to be realistic and you've got to open up here to your failures in order to improve on them. One of the things yesterday that was a glaring problem once again, and not for the first time for Barcelona, it was the heart of that defence, and in particular, the lack of pace, and it was obvious from every single one of us watching there. You could see there was a real lack of pace at the centre of defence. Because when we play a high line, as you'll see very frequently with Barcelona, that's the way that we've always played, you leave a lot of space in behind you, and it doesn't matter who you're up against. You see it last night with Ferencvaros, who, like I say, are not the greatest team ever, but they found a way in behind time and time again, and we don't have the pace to recover. Piqué, Longley, they just look sluggish. They look like they wasn't going to get to the ball. They look as though we're going to get beaten every single time in a similar fashion to the way that Bayern constantly spun us in the 8-2 defeat. Now, you'd think on paper that obviously the fullbacks there would be able to help. You've got Serginho Dest, who's very quick. You've got Sergio Roberto. You've got Jordi Alba when he comes back. Surely those fullbacks will be able to help there to cover in behind those centre-backs. But the problem is for Barcelona, when those fullbacks go forward, which they do, and we want them to do that, when they go forward, you've then got the situation where actually it's Frenkie de Jong, or it's Sergio Busquets, or it's Pjanic, who's just going to drop in there and help out defensively, and that doesn't really give us an abundance of pace. We still are susceptible to long balls in behind, to players there exposing Piqué, exposing Longley for pace, and that's why against Juventus, Ronald Araujo is going to start that game. He will bring some much needed pace, some much needed energy at the centre of defence, and I'm very excited to see how he does. So that there, guys, are just some of the things that we learned against Ferencvaros in the Champions League. Of course, in the coming days, there is going to be so much build-up here, right here, and on More Talk FCB ahead of the Clasico. There's going to be plenty to talk about, plenty to analyse, and believe me, we're going to be getting very excited for that game. And of course, we go into it now with more confidence, and let's also see how Real Madrid get on against Shakhtar tonight. I'll see you soon, and thank you for watching. But until next time, as always, Visca el Barça.